Hey guys, it's been a minute. Welcome back. I feel like YouTube is just like this thing that's calling my name, and every time I make time for it, I feel so much better. And every time I take some time off, I don't feel so good. I love watching YouTube, so for me, just sitting down and doing a long form video just brings me back to honestly when YouTube first came out. You saw all these bloggers, vloggers, people doing what's in my bag videos. That's the type of vibe that I'm going for. But today, our topic is a little bit more serious, to be honest, and I really wanted to talk about this. And I'm not sure if honestly, I'm not sure if a lot of people talk about this, but it's about raising kids while you're healing, and you're raising kids without a blueprint. So let me explain. There was a moment for me that I realized what I want for my kids is something honestly completely different from what I had. And it was like looking in a mirror and realizing that I don't have a blueprint of the things that I want. All I know is that the past or how I was raised is not what I want to do with my kids. And that moment is interesting because a lot of us, when we're parents, we kind of look back and think about what did our parents do? What did mom and dad teach us in this moment? How were we handling different situations? And for me, that started right away, to be honest, when my son started to have emotions and feelings like that were obviously very big, and he didn't know how to handle them. And honestly, looking at him, I also didn't know how to handle them, which really made me realize through a lot of work on myself is that I've never been taught how to identify emotions, specifically something that's happening in my body. So let me explain. When somebody said, "Where in your body do you feel this?" I looked at them like they had six heads. I had no idea what they're saying, and I didn't understand. I was like, "What do you mean, where do I feel it? I'm mad, or I'm upset, angry, sad. That's what I'm feeling." And the response was always like, "But where in your body is it?" And I literally did not understand the question. Now, after doing a lot of therapy, body work, various types of healing, but also reading a lot of books, this really helped me with parenting, is that identifying emotion is one thing, and a reaction to that emotion is a separate thing. When our kids are having a hard time, it's very important to name that emotion. Oh, hey, I see that you're upset, or I see that you're feeling sad or angry, or whatever it may be. But it's also important to recognize the reaction they're having. So all emotions are welcome, but not all reactions are acceptable. And that's something Dr. Becky says. And that really hit the nerve for me. I was like, oh my God, yes. Because a tantrum in the middle of, I don't know, a store where a child is just completely uncontrollable, you want to take them out of maybe that space and just have a moment with them. Or sometimes they're playing with a friend and they hit their friend because the friend took the toy. So that reaction is unacceptable. However, the feeling of feeling anger or mad that somebody took their toy is totally valid. That's a big, I think, blueprint that's missing in my toolbox, is that I didn't have parents that were able to name emotions and then show me that the reaction that I was having was okay or not okay. It was just everything was not okay. So it was not in alignment with an emotion that my mother expected me to have. It was not okay because she also couldn't name the emotion. She also didn't have the tools in her toolbox. So, guys, I'm getting over a cold, so sometimes I'm stopping throughout this video and coughing because it's hard for me to get my words out. It's not like I'm crying, but I was just coughing. So I wanted to just say that again. If your parents didn't have the blueprint, you most likely don't have the blueprint. So maybe their grandparents also didn't have it. But it takes one, and in my family, I am that one, to realize that the buck stops with me, for a lack of a better term. But the trauma, the passing down, this stuff stops with me. And the person who is the cycle breaker is, what is the most delicate word I can use? That person is very strong, even though they sometimes do not want to be strong. They just want to collapse as well and cry and kick and scream. They are extremely resilient. They are extremely polarizing in the family, kind of like the black sheep, because they're going against what has been considered normal or the norm for generations. So if that's you, I'm there with you. And if you're a mom, I feel like as a woman, it's so difficult to hold on to that role because as mothers, course, as women, we hold so much up here and in our hearts, and it's so overwhelming sometimes. And I think we have these emotions towards our kids and feelings that we want to do everything for them, protect them, give them everything, but also don't want to spoil them. But at the end of the day, what values are we instilling into our children is the most important thing. Now, everybody has different values, and I'm not here to talk about that. For me, it's how I want to parent without knowing how to do that, because nobody did it to me. So it's a little bit confusing. So that's why it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of reading and therapy and honestly trial and error, and it's okay. But I have been seeing a lot of content on social media. It's probably being served to me strategically, but about specifically mothers who are raising kids without having a mother present. So either their mom has passed, or their mom and daughter don't have a relationship or whatever reason, or they are distant, or maybe it's like physically they're really far apart. I have a very, I would say, what's the word I'm trying to look for? I don't want to say broken, but it's definitely not a whole relationship with my mother. We're not, I would say, distant, but the relationship we have is not healthy. And I don't want to bash her, because I think it's important to recognize she's my mother, and in theory she did the best that she can. Sometimes I have a hard time saying that, because I think there's so many tools now that you can use and reflections that you can do to become a better mother when you have an adult daughter. But in my case, sometimes my mother doesn't want to do that. Now, again, did she do the best she could? She most likely thinks so. And perception is reality. So for me, it's probably not the best. I would say it's not the best, but for her it is, and we all have to accept that. So what I want to say is, on top of wanting a blueprint that you don't have, if you have a complicated, let's just say, relationship with your mother, it's quite difficult to raise kids, because there's so many things I want to go to her to, but I can't, or I know that the response she's going to have is not in alignment with the blueprint that I'm trying to create for my family. So it's difficult because you grieve, and I always thought grieving was when somebody passes away and you have that stage of grieving, and that's really not the case. I grieve a relationship that I wish I had. I grieve that I can't go to my mother for certain things. I grieve that my childhood was traumatic in certain aspects, and I wish I could give that little Vera the childhood that maybe my kids are having now. But it's like wishful thinking as well. Everything happens for a reason, and we're put on this planet for our own reasons. And karmic contracts that we come into this world with need to be fulfilled, in my opinion. So it's hard to say, I wish I had that. However, I do pause, and when I see my kids playing at the beach in Southern California while I grew up in a studio apartment in Southern Russia, I take a minute to just sit and be like, you have come so far, and your kids have such a better situation than what you grew up with in certain ways, right? There's all these angles to parenting, but that's what I just want to talk about, is that if you want to parent a certain way, or you want to parent a way that you want to parent the opposite way of the way you were parented, it takes time. You need to give yourself grace. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging, but it's also amazing. And if you're the type of mother that cares so much about her children that you are going literally to the ends of the earth to make sure that they have a different childhood than you did, know that you're an amazing mother. Because like I said, it takes a very strong, resilient person to do that, and not playing into that victim mindset. It's very difficult to do that. It's very easy to blame your childhood for XYZ and then just brush it off and just be like, this is what happened, I can't change it. But it takes a lot more courage and grit to say, yes, this is what happened to me, but I choose to do something different, or I choose to make myself better, learn different tools and skills and things like that. And so just some pointers on how I am breaking that cycle. So for example, handling those tantrums, there are times that I do yell at my kids, and every time that happens, I feel so bad. And it really breaks my heart. One time my son told me, I had a really good day, Mom didn't yell at me. And I literally broke into tears, because he's almost 4 and he understands so much more than I thought. So now I'm so mindful about my response. And I'm again trying to name the emotion he's having, but also connect the response. And he's playing with his sister, and she doesn't understand yet. She takes a toy and throws it or puts it in her mouth. I say to him, I know that was really hard, and I know you wanted that toy. Let's go get it together. We're gonna say, please don't do that again, or we're gonna give her another toy. But sometimes his reaction is like throwing himself on the ground and throwing a tantrum. And I just remember those days that parallels back to my childhood. If I were to ever do that, it was like huge repercussions, you know what I mean? So I try not to do that. But we're not perfect, learning every single day. And it was saying the little Vera in me still exists. So it's very important to have those moments and be like, even that I'm a mom now, I can sit down and get on the floor with my kids and do a puzzle and play games and be like, little Vera would love this. So connecting those things really helps. So I don't know, I just wanted to chat through and just make sure you guys are not alone if you're going through this. And hopefully it helps. Hopefully that gives you some hope that we're all doing our best. We're trying to do better. We're trying to reparent or parent in a new way. And it just takes time, courage, and patience.